Joining me now, Michigan Congresswoman, House Energy and Commerce Committee member, and Democratic Policy and Communications Committee co-chair, Debbie Dingell. Also back with me all morning, Brian Brenberg and Heather Zumaraga. Congresswoman, are you concerned that this impeachment trial gets in the way of doing the Senate's business to help all Americans, particularly those hardest hit by COVID and the COVID shutdowns?
Well, good morning to the three of you. I have a lot of different concerns. I do believe that we absolutely must hold those that were accountable for the attack on the Capitol on January 6th. And as someone that was in the Capitol on the floor, heard the gunshot, I never realized how serious it was until I later saw the videos and the clips. But I am concerned about the manner in which it happens, that we do not contribute to further division in this country. We do have to find ways to come together. President Biden needs to get his cabinet in place. The number of crises and challenges that the country is facing required the leadership to be in all of those cabinet positions. And we needed national COVID strategy for a year that we haven't had. So that needs to move forward as well. But I heard Senator Schumer last night talk about as well that this next week they want to try to get many of the cabinet nominations done, and they will begin work on the COVID-19 package as well, and we have to do it all.
But Congresswoman, there was a strategy. There have been trillions of dollars allocated and spent by Congress on COVID relief starting last spring. And more than anything, there was a vaccines, plural, that it was one of the greatest public-private partnerships that you will ever see, potentially, in the history of the United States. And so there was a strategy. Quite frankly, the failures have been at the state and local level, which the federal government, quite frankly, doesn't have much control over.
See, I would respectfully disagree. I do believe that the fact that we have these vaccines is something that we should all celebrate. And that is something that we should acknowledge that process was started for. But right now, we need the Defense Production Act. We don't have enough vaccine in any city, state across the country. And the way that COVID was handled, I talk to these governors. I talk to these governors all the time. I talk to Gretchen Whitmer almost daily, but I've talked to numerous other ones, and the NGA. They were bidding against each other. There was no national strategy. You didn't know when he might help you with the National Guard, when you might not get help with the National Guard. They were bidding against each other for PPE equipment. The national supply was a disaster. So we need a national strategy that's going to help the states. And by the way, state and municipal governments are desperate for financial help, and we've not been willing to give them any too. And that's everything from the frontline workers, the fire, the police, the teachers. There's a whole lot of things that need to happen right now, and they need us working together.
Well, Brian Brenberg, I'm going to bring you in here, but there's an issue with President Biden wants $130 billion in additional money, $130 billion in additional money to reopen the schools with no requirement that they do so. And you see what's going on in Chicago with the teachers' union.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I was just going to reference the Chicago issue. You know, when you have the president calling for this money, but people are watching a major city in the United States and its teachers union unwilling to go back and do the work that this money is supposed to enable, people start to scratch their heads and they say, what are we paying for here? And I think, Congresswoman, that's sort of the issue with this latest relief or stimulus bill is there are some things in there a lot of people can agree about, and there are just some issues that create a huge divide, including the minimum wage increase, for example, small bit of divisive things, and actually gets the money that we need to get things reopened again and help people.
But we have to get to a bill that's going to give people the things they need. But I want to take each of those two subjects on separately. I want you to look at who the glue has been of keeping this country together since we went into shutdown mode over COVID last March. It was people we didn't think were worth paying enough, paying $15 an hour. All the billionaires and everybody else had a place to go, but it was those people that kept the bus line running. They kept the grocery stores open. They kept them stocked. It was the Amazon drivers that were delivering. And I think we need to look at the value of a human life and the people that are working and pay them for what they are giving us as a society.
You don't think that
I have no room for discussion on that. They are worth it. The way that they are working, they are owed it from us. They kept this society going.
Well, just this week, Target announced it's going to be paying out another round of bonuses to their employees. But on the reverse of that, as President Biden has talked about, a national $15 minimum wage. That's not a living wage in New York City necessarily. But if you implement that in southern states with much lower costs of living, and you lay that on restaurants that barely survive the shutdown, they'll never come back, Congresswoman. That's just the issue. It's not the issue that people don't value the employees, but I'm saying that laying on a $15 national minimum wage, it's incredibly financially burdensome to businesses in many states where the cost of living is just not that high.
So what we've got to do, we had a restaurant bill that Earl Blumenauer introduced it. I was part of it, that we were trying to get in the bill last year. We need to give the restaurant owners help in supporting that. We got to look at the tip wages. It's complicated, but I sure know that there are a lot of people that have put their life at risk that we've got to pay. And in the schools, it's not as, we do have to have some tough school discussion. My niece is pregnant, and God bless her, she's been going in and she's been teaching, and we don't even have information for young women. Is it safe to take the vaccine? Is it not safe to take the vaccine? And they love their kids, and they don't want to let them down. We are going to have further, more detailed discussions with people that know what they're talking about in the education field, in the science field. We need facts to determine how is it safe to open schools and keep the teachers and the students and their families safe.
Well, I can tell you that with children, kids seldomly contract the COVID-19 virus. They rarely have severe cases and are not considered major spreaders. I want to move on to this. Republicans on the House Oversight Committee say that any investigation into Parler's role in the January 6th riots, Parler shut down by Amazon, Apple, and Google, should also include Twitter and Facebook. Lawmakers are criticizing big tech companies of profiting off the riot. Congresswoman, are you on board with that? This is the Oversight Committee chaired by Carolyn Maloney.
Look, I've had problems with Facebook and Twitter for some time. So I think we have to take a very serious look at all of social media. I believe in free speech. I think people should have free speech. But these social media giants have been the lies that are told, the hatred. I mean, I've sent a number of letters to Facebook just on the bigotry and the vitriolicness and, quite frankly, the violence that has come out of a number of things, including against Muslims. So I think this is a very serious subject that we have to take a look at. How do you balance freedom of speech with people's individual protection and privacy and all kinds of things? It's complicated, but it can't be ignored.
Because just going after Parler looks like targeting of conservatives, quite frankly, and also weaponizing her views and weaponizing her power on that committee. Because we know that more of the rioting was organized on Facebook and YouTube than on Parler. But Parler was a center for conservative sharing views. They got shut down. Facebook,
I think
YouTube,
we need to look
untouched.
At all of it. Look, I've seen threats on Facebook and Twitter on other things much more personal to me. So we need to look at all of them. What's okay, what's not okay? How do you protect a very fundamental pillar of our Constitution, freedom of speech, freedom of press even? But how do you keep it from being manipulated as a tool of violence and rhetoric?
More time next time. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, great to see you. Be well, be safe.